What's up, everybody? Welcome back. It's October, and that means I have another amazing guest that I am chatting with. I hope that everyone is rounding out their 2024 super, super strong. It's been one hell of a year. I'm going to say that, but I do love the fall season, Chad.
Mhm.
This is my favorite time of year when the leaves kind of turn here in Austin.
Yeah.
Football season and the October with Halloween and my daughter's one, just so many things happening, Thanksgiving and then it's just
Oh, yes.
good vibes, and people tend to be in good moods.
Yeah.
Anyways, so thanks for watching today, whether you're watching with us live or afterwards. Say what's up. Let us know where you're watching or listening in from. And please ask questions along the way. We're definitely going to look in the comments and make sure that we are responding to anything that comes up during this awesome conversation with Chad Jenkins. I've known Chad a couple years now, and he's like the ultimate entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, investor. I don't consider myself to be that person, Chad, but you really embody to me that spirit of innovation and creation and collaboration and how to help businesses um, SeedSpark
Mhm.
their
Mhm.
ideas. That's the name of your company. But I'd really love for you to first talk about your journey a bit, how you became
Okay.
founder and what you're doing with SeedSpark. How did you kind of get here so we get a little bit of an understanding of who you are?
Okay. Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Looking back, good gracious. I remember a long time ago, I used to be the guy 20 to 30 years younger in every business meeting. I'm just not that guy anymore, sadly. So it's a lot of experience. If you go way, way back, with zero, so no education or formal education and no real business experience, but I did identify with how to create value. And I started doing that at a very early age. So if I take a look all the way back, is when did this really start happening? Is around the age of 8. Is as far back as I can remember, looking at things differently and how I could create value, combining two or more people, places, and things. So I've been training my brain to do it since I was about 8 years old. And you mentioned serial entrepreneur. It is the classification when you have many, 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 many businesses. So every time the old me figured out a way to create new value, and it was driven by identifying a friction that existed in a current industry, then I would go start a company.
Yeah.
And I did it many, many times. Today, I didn't do that. You mentioned SeedSpark earlier. And the name SeedSpark stands for Seed the Vision, Spark Growth. I started it in 2005, back when BlackBerry was starting to hit mainstream, so a long, long time ago. And at that time, I was growing another organization I had very, very quickly, and I was scaling it so fast that it was beginning to get away from me. So I started a software organization to just automate business processes. And that's what SeedSpark started as. So it was 2 years before the iPhone came out. And it was just an awareness that I had. At the time, I mentioned the company was growing really quickly. It was a wireless company. I got really, really big in Nextel distribution. Same thing, identify friction in the industry because I did not want to be known as the phone guy, though I was at that time. And the friction was everyone's bill was messed up. So
Mm.
I figured out that folks would pay $5 a month for however many phones you had on your corporate wireless account for someone to play matchmaker, your usage patterns against the new rate plans. And
Mm.
SeedSpark originally started because of that. I was going so quickly. So who do you buy your phone from? I was going to make sure your bill's right. Not this month, not next month, but every month, especially if you have 10 phones or 2,000 phones on your account.
Yeah.
So SeedSpark was created to leverage software development via web apps to automate business processes. I mentioned BlackBerry earlier. So after launching the first BlackBerry store in the world, I just identified that the clients who were buying cell phones or BlackBerries from me also had a friction, which is anytime you're trying to pass data from the field back to the back to the office, or from the office to the field, like dispatching a technician,
Yeah.
they were having to do it via phone.
Mm.
So that's where it originally started. Obviously, it's continued to morph since that time. Today, I recently spun out a digital marketing organization, Prismo Marketing. The software organization is now Code Fusion, and a cybersecurity company, which is SparkNav. SeedSpark itself partners with entrepreneurs all over the planet under what I'm classifying as a global entrepreneur collaboration. And the model is a split of the outcome of success, 90% to the entrepreneur, 10% to SeedSpark, and then 70% of that goes back into the community. Because what I
Mhm.
recognized, another friction, entrepreneurs by nature are very giving individuals. They want to see many of us individually and collectively succeed. So they give their time, effort, energy, and wisdom and experience away, but they haven't figured out a way to monetize it. And therefore, it's not very formalized and it is intentional as long as they're requested. I wanted to create something that was very proactive in leveraging collaboration between entrepreneurs for a much bigger outcome. So that's what SeaSpark is today. Yeah. Which
Mm.
is sort of what I've been doing since day one.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, how many different entrepreneurs have you worked with at the company?
Oh, as far as active growth partners, we're just over 50. So I began to offer this as a collaboration and an engagement back in January. Uh, as far as entrepreneurs that I have worked with leading up to that point, hundreds of thousands. And now we're about 50. I should be at about 100 by the end of the year. And our run rate shows that we'll be at about 1,000 just before 3 years, all over the globe. Yeah.
So, Chad, like, what do you think makes or breaks an entrepreneur?
When they lose sight of creating value for those that they serve, that's
Mm.
what breaks them. Everyone at least in my experience, everyone starts out recognizing a friction,
Yeah.
figuring out that they're working for someone or they're in an industry and they can identify, they have vision, obviously vision, of how it can be better. So it's friction identification, and then they just validate how many people, if I resolve this, would it impact and how big of a business could I build? And that gets them started. But then before too long, they start making money. It's a little bit like the devil. Because when you begin to get profitable, now you've got to scale. And before too long, if you're not careful, it's more about scaling the organization than it is creating value for those that you're serving.
Yeah.
And that's whenever you begin to flatline.
Mm.
So, and you go through these dips, those peaks, value creation at the bottom. Now we're rising up. Oh, fat and happy. We're hiring more. We're expanding. We're going to another state. And then
Yeah.
we get really, really focused on growing the business versus and scaling the business versus the value that you're creating. So
Mm.
I've seen that be definitely an impediment to growth with entrepreneurs all over the world. Great question.
It's really interesting that we're talking about this today, Chad, and that this is coming up because um, this morning I listened to whatever Gabby Bernstein. She's a
Mm-hmm.
spiritual person,
Mm-hmm.
and one of her little quick things was to to really sink back into your purpose and what you're doing,
Yes.
to write a love letter to the audience you're serving and to the
Oh,
people.
yeah.
And she says she does this before she starts a book. She writes a love letter for just really what this book is for. And so on my walk this morning, while I was walking Ava and Frankie, we've had a lot of family challenges. It's been a bit of a tough year. I
Mm-hmm.
did a voice recording and I wrote a love letter and I shared it with my content editor. And I said, I need to get this out, but like, this is
Yeah.
why I'm doing this. And it felt really powerful
Mm-hmm.
to remind myself
Mm-hmm.
of why did I, leave corporate? Why did I
Yes.
choose this path? Who was I and who am I today? Like, do I want to
Mm-hmm.
still keep doing this or do I not? And so that just resonates so much with me. um, what is that value
Mm-hmm.
that we're trying to create, and you need that reminder, you really do, Chad. And
Oh,
so
yes.
I'm curious, with the folks that you work with, the growth partners, How do you continue to make, ensure that you're bringing value to not just yourself, but to your customers?
Yeah, so for me, and I mentioned it just a little bit earlier, it's all about friction identification. Because if you think about it, even when you grow, you create frictions. There's different varying degrees of friction, getting really in tune with the ones that are not yet impacting you, but you can feel that they're on the surface. So there's a disturbance in the force. You've leveled
Mhm.
up, and things are going well, but things are starting to pop their head up. That is a driving factor for me, and it always has been. Another thing that you mentioned that really jumps off the page to me is I've coined unique value contribution. So a lot of times when you engage with somebody or an organization, what do you guys do? Well, the signs on the door or the building or the
Yeah.
titles in the email signature. And I would argue strongly against that's not the way, that's not really who you are. And it's not specifically the way you create value in the world. It's the way in which you apply yourself to the name on the door or the building or the title in the email signature. So getting back to that centering and understanding how you create value in the world, your unique value contribution is very paramount as well. But if you combine those two things together, I know who I am. So having a very strong presence and awareness of how you do what it is that you do, not what the industry conventions of titles and labels are. And then following frictions in your industry or those that you serve is bountiful innovation and growth. I've seen it happen
Mm.
time and time again. But the second that you begin to get away from that, you get too enamored to the name of the industry or your SIC code that you're in or this expansion that you're doing, you begin to serve yourself, things start to get a little bit awry. So making sure that
Mhm.
you keep that centering in the way in which you create value and being driven by frictions that you notice, focusing on those that you serve is limitless.
Mm.
When you mentioned serial entrepreneur, which makes a lot of sense because there's been so many companies. I got chastised for a long time. It's like, why do you continue doing this?
Mm.
How much is enough? Why do you have so many companies? Like, how can you do this in the first place? And I began to really unpack, like, what was the driving force? What was my
Yeah.
unique value contribution? And it was, like I mentioned earlier, I see the value created when you combine multiple people, places, and things. And I just want to share it. Um, Before that, I looked just like a maniac of going and creating companies, and not anymore. Like it empowered me to embrace exactly who I am, and it's so fulfilling because I can do it for any industry on any place of this planet. At least from experience, it seems that way, and it's so rewarding too. But
Yeah.
you can get away from it whenever you do. Things begin to get a little awry, but getting back to that center, it just gives you unlimited energy.
Mm. Unique value contribution.
Yes.
I like it. I like
Hmm.
that one a lot, and it's very aligned to my beliefs around personal branding and how do you
Hmm.
see yourself? How do you want others to see you? What are you passionate about? What are you skilled at? How do you want to show up? You're
It's a
talking
good
a
point.
lot. Yeah, you're talking a lot about friction.
Yes.
And I know you have this book coming out, new book.
Oh,
He
yes, of
already
course.
he already has a book, Just Out of Zero, which is really phenomenal read. You can check out his profile. And now you have a new book coming out. Tell
Yes,
us a
ma'am.
little bit about the inspiration to write this one.
Sure. I mentioned that I've worked with entrepreneurs for a very, very long time. And in the first book, Just Add a Zero, which definitely changes your mindset and gives you the fuel to just think differently. One of the concepts there was remove the film, which is excellent for entrepreneurs. It was driven me since day one. Friction identification, leverage the market is what film stands for. And all of
Mhm,
us have gotten a new iPhone or Android or vehicle. You have to peel off the plastic. You're like,
mhm,
whoa, that screen looks a lot better, whether it be in a car, your new iPhone, or your iPad. So I envision most organizations are that way. A lot of folks that are close to me will hear better is infinite in signing books. I've been doing that for years. Better is infinite, stay curious. So I recognized that Remove the Film was an awesome growth strategy for entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs have organizations. So being present and aware and just continuing to dig on this concept that all great things originate from friction, and
Mm.
they do. One of my favorite words is tribal luminescence, which is a word that would almost stretch from Charlotte, North Carolina to Austin, Texas if you try to spell it. Please don't ask me to do that. But what it means is the point in which friction turns into light. So Remove the Film obviously is completely wired up in my background, but I wanted to create something that was more operationally sound that an entrepreneur could implement in their organization. So that's when I really got down the rabbit hole of understanding there's multiple types of friction, multiple degrees of friction that can
Mhm.
impact your growth strategy and ultimately it can keep you from growing. And Friction Fuel is the book's name, the new book. So different types of fuel, just like you would pull up to a gas station. But some of us don't do that anymore, of course. But the old me did a lot, especially when I was in the horse trailer business, tons of fuel. And you would pick regular friction, mid grade, or plus, depending on where you are in the country, or premium. It's the same thing for businesses. So we have regular frictions that we are all, anyone who's watching this is very keenly aware of because they're probably dealing with some. Our hair's on fire. The
Yeah.
pipeline's drying up. Our subscriptions are down. Our attrition's up. We literally have talent walking out the door. Those are regular frictions. Mid grade are bountiful. On your walk this morning, if you happen to check your phone before you left, you
Mhm.
probably had an email or a text message or you might have gotten a call. Then in the first three words of what you read or what you listened to, you did a miniature shoulder shrug. That's a friction.
Mhm.
Those are mid grade frictions.
Mhm. Mhm.
At face value, as entrepreneurs, we just resolve them and keep walking to the meeting that we're supposed to be in. We're probably running a minute or two late. Those of you who are to be able to harness them are in limited innovation. You just need to spot the trends. I also recognize that the entrepreneur was the one by primarily, especially depending on the size of the organization, responsible to spot those trends. But as long as you are harnessing them, and the entrepreneur is really good at what they're doing, they're
Mhm.
finding unlimited ways to create value by tracking those frictions. And then if you're really good and you elevate to the top, which of course, if you were pulling to a gas station, would be premium friction. And premium frictions are whenever you're able to spot trends that are causing a little bit of disturbance with those that you serve, but no one's saying anything.
Mm.
There's not any complaints. You're not getting emails. There's nothing coming up on your EOS IDS meeting if you run EOS every month or every week, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's not there yet. But if you're able to spot those, which is what I have been doing for a very long time, and start today creating products and services that add value to those relationships that already trust you, then you look like you're innovating more than anyone in the industry and you begin to evolve industries. I'll give an example.
I was
Recognizing
gonna
that
ask.
everybody, is that right? Recognizing that everyone's bill was messed up for a guy who'd never been in the phone business. It was literally, I'd started a business in horse feed and panels and gates. It's like a Tractor Supply. Most people know what that is now. I get really big into horse trailers. That the next time people thought I was a joke. Well, I just figured out easier ways to do business with me than the way that their distribution model was, and I grew like crazy. But recognizing everyone's bills messed up, there was no telecom expense management industry, which now is multiple billions of dollars. None. And the guys who were in the industry, I did an acquisition of a guy who was, I think he'd been in that industry 10 years longer, which I think I was probably 12 at that time when he started. I figured, oh, I'll acquire this guy, get his retail locations, and continue to growing in the conventional sense of the way these businesses grow. But I recognized that everyone's bill's messed up. I remember getting laughed at when I said, you know what, I'm pretty sure people will pay $5 a phone for us to look at their bill and to change rate plans proactively, get credits that they're due, and it'll probably last for a long time. And that's a nice little recurring. Yeah, it became $20 million a year. And if
Wow.
anybody knows what enterprise value of $20 million recurring services business is, it's
Yeah.
not shabby.
Yeah.
Plus, who do you want to buy your phone from? Well, that is just, as I mentioned earlier, it's just recognizing a friction
Yeah.
and leveraging the markets. Like, how many people am I going to affect if I resolve this friction? But that's a clear example of premium friction fuel. So I wanted to pack all of that into a book. I'll even give away the secret sauce here. If you wanted to go and implement a way that you could capture these and take the burden off your shoulders as the entrepreneur or your leadership team to spot trends and complaints, to make sure you're putting your best foot forward to create innovation in your business model and enhance the value, you may consider a very expensive alternative, which is a shared mailbox. Now, for the folks that just laughed, we know what a shared mailbox is. You probably have one. It's PO's ad or vacation ad or
Uh-huh.
time off ad. They're free. You're either hosted on Google or Microsoft. A shared mailbox is $0. Friction at yourcompanyname.com, and every time you do that miniature shoulder shrug, forward it in.
Mm.
Then once a week, before you have your weekly meeting, take all of those out of that shared mailbox, export them as a CSV, and instead of you, the entrepreneur, your leadership team, or your managers, or your HR, having to spot the trends and the complaints that you're receiving, you can ask ChatGPT to do it.
Mm. Yeah.
Ask for the top 10, take those out, and then put those. I mentioned EOS earlier. So if you're
Yeah.
running your IDS meeting, let that be on your IDS section.
Yeah.
Now you're listening to the voice of your clients, your suppliers, and your internal team of frictions that they're running across on a daily basis. It also takes a lot of weight off them. They don't need to go and tell it to Sally, and hopefully Sally tells it to Julie, and it goes all the way to the top, and we actually make a decision to affect change. They can
Yeah.
just forward it to friction at yourcompanyname.com, and they know it's going to be reviewed.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a great idea. And it seems like it's just a very iterative process. Like for you, it's just
Mhm.
coming very naturally. It sounds like you're just sort of made that way, right? To be
Mhm.
looking, and part of being a great entrepreneur is to train ourselves to do that.
Sure.
Um, and get out of working in the business and start
Mhm.
looking outside, it sounds like, too, you
Mhm.
know? Well, that's really exciting about the book coming out. Second book. Congrats on that,
Thank
Chad.
you.
Excited to check that out.
Mhm.
You also, in our couple minutes here, I really wanted you to talk about collab.
Oh, yes.
And I mean, now that I run a business and being around more entrepreneurs,
Mhm.
I really understand now more than ever the need for community and the need for mentors and guides and coaches along the way, because it's really unlike anything else,
Yes.
when you're trying to create an idea and make it real.
Mhm.
And collab is a really phenomenal opportunity. So I'd love for you to talk about your inspiration to create collab and what it is exactly for anybody interested.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. So the collab is launching in the next 30 days, soft launch, and then effectively after that, it'll be a full launch all across the planet. And it's basically my version of LinkedIn for a global entrepreneur collaboration. So you mentioned mentors and guides along the way. For the first 35 years that I was on the planet, and for many of those I've been in business, I thought I was just supposed to get up earlier, work harder, be smarter, and outrun the next guy. And that did work. But somewhere around mid 30s, I came to this realization: I was like, hold up, there's a lot of people on the planet. This is just maybe 4 or 5 generations that are represented as multiple billions. I'm probably not going to do anything unique. And there's been many, many generations in business and entrepreneurs in business before. If they wrote any of this down, I could probably just make new mistakes. So that set me on a path of just consuming data and content and reading, and of course, recognizing those patterns and frictions. Um, but what I wanted to do with the Colab platform is of course, all of us use LinkedIn. We're currently on LinkedIn, which is wonderful. Uh, for entrepreneurs only, I wanted to provide a platform that would enable them to communicate with each other, and I've built a model through my growth partners to facilitate when they win, everyone participates in the upside. So the collab platform is actually just the manifestation of what my brain does naturally
Mhm.
in a mobile app, and of course a web browser as well, or a web application, where you're able to do and execute on forums or tools that I've created that help folks understand how to collaborate and how to leverage all the resources they have at their fingertips to create exponential growth. I want to put that all in one place. As well, I recognize in dealing with entrepreneurs all over the world, they themselves have created a wealth of intellectual property.
Yeah.
It normally never sees the light of day other than their own individual organization. So, just the same as I recognize a friction of getting my tools out to help entrepreneurs, and the collab platform is one way, I wanted to also offer any entrepreneur who is on the collab platform or who is a growth partner of SeedSpark, they're able to put their intellectual property there, and some will give it away for free, of course, and some will want to sell it. Everything that I do is a 90-10 split with the entrepreneur. So they're able to get their intellectual property out on this platform to assist and help in the growth of other entrepreneurs. You mentioned mentors or guides. So it's a central repository for all of this intellectual property and wisdom to utilize the art of collaboration to help everyone grow. And it's going to be in your pocket.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's going to be really powerful for entrepreneurs and innovators, and just we need that. We need the cross collaboration. I think that's something, Chad, that you really are, at the forefront of collaboration over competition and partnership. And so I really appreciate that about you and your leadership. And you have a great event coming up, y'all, in like 2 weeks, October 17th. We'll drop that link in the comments. But you're going to be talking about that collaboration, bi-directional collaboration, right?
Yes.
And I think Josh is going to be hanging with you.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It'll be fun.
Yes.
Looking very forward to it.
Yeah. So Josh will be Lee. My hubby will be hanging with Chad. So that's going to be really fun in a couple weeks. So definitely do check that out. Chad, to wrap up today, just one quick takeaway. If somebody's listening today, they're that entrepreneur, the one thing that you would have told yourself.
Oh, a long time ago. And I was very aware of the value from collaboration, even though I didn't use those words to describe it. But I've one saying that I've definitely begun to adopt and share. Competition happens at the bottom. The people at the top are collaborating. The quicker that we understand that, the faster we're going to grow, and a lot less of those growing pains you will feel.
That's really good. I really like that one. Follow, check out his LinkedIn profile. You can go to seedspark.com. Definitely check out Collab. Give him a DM. Chad, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Really appreciate your insights and wisdom. You have so much wisdom to share, and I really appreciate you hanging with me. We'll be back next month. Another amazing guest. Please reach out. Tell me what you learned. Share this if you think it's going to be beneficial with somebody. And I will see you here next month, y'all.